Summary of A River of Golden Bones, Book 1 of the Golden Court, written by A.K. Mulford. Chapter 1. The golden carriages kicked up dust as townsfolk rushed to the streets, packing every window and stoop. They waved their handkerchiefs at the two coaches, craning their necks, trying to get a peek at the crown prince. The villagers didn't know why he was there, but I did, and it made my heart leap into my throat with excitement. I knew tomorrow I'd be leaving town in one of those gilded carriages back to his castle. A rook caught above me, iridescent wings shimmering as it landed on a maple branch. I scowled at the midnight bird. A bad omen. San's army of cloaked guards brandished the same moniker. And now, whenever I saw them, my stomach turned sour, sobering me from the thrill of the encroaching carriages. With a frown toward the rook, I leapt from my trusty perch. I didn't need any bad omens today of all days. My gut lurched as the wind rushed around me and I landed in a crouch. I did a quick scan of the clearing, though I knew no humans were nearby. Their scent would have carried easily through the dry summer forest. I peered back at the maple tree, but the rook had disappeared into the dense foliage. I tucked my amber necklace back under my neckline and dusted the leaves off my threadbare dress. Sticks snapped under my bare feet as I darted downhill. My dress snagged on a thicket of thorns, and I pulled it free, grimacing at the sound of fabric tearing. Velia would have to mend it again. I hated dresses, but Velia insisted I wear them when I ventured from the cabin, as wearing tunics and breeches would only draw more attention. As if I wasn't stared at anyway, being one of the two strange girls who lived in the wood. I shielded my eyes from the glinting sun as I ran, not from the rook, though it still had me a bit spooked, especially with who was coming, but toward the road. My bare toes clung to the rough bark of a fallen tree as I crossed the narrow creek, rushing toward the royal procession. In one of those carriages was Grayman Claudius, the crown prince to the Silver Wolf Kingdom of Damrian. My friend had returned at last. My heart drummed in my ears. I wondered if he looked the same. We'd still been pups the last time I saw him, only 13 years old. Full moons were the only time his father, King Nero, permitted him to visit us here, and only ever as a wolf. It was too risky any other way. For if anyone discovered a gold wolf in this village, the news would surely spread to San. I glanced up again, to see if I could spy a rook spying back on me. When no birds caught my eye, I cleared the forest with a swift leap. My bare feet slapped against the dusty cobbles as I raced toward the throng of well-wishers. It was with a sense of mischievous contentment that I knew I would be watching the world through their human eyes one last time, pretending to be just another among them. My lungs panted sweet air as I pushed my legs faster. I rushed past broken carts and bags of spoiled grain, my hair whipping behind me as I steered toward the main road. I skirted down a shortcut and heard the crowd roar. I turned my head toward the sound, not watching up ahead, and slammed into an unyielding object. My feet slid out from under me as I bounced off what I realized was a cloaked figure. Arms wheeling, I braced myself for the hard thump onto the stone when two powerful hands grabbed me midair and hoisted me back to my feet. Apologies, I blurted out, even as I scrambled for the paring knife in my dress pocket. Velia wouldn't let me bring my dagger, but I could justify a paring knife for foraging. The figure chuckled a deep, throaty laugh that made me still my hand. "Hello, little fox." The familiar rasp of his low voice made my eyes go wide. My stomach somersaulted at the sound of my nickname. Brushing the curls off my face, I narrowed my eyes, peering into the darkness of his hood. Only one person ever called me that name, and that person I hadn't seen in 7 years. Someone who should be in one of those carriages instead of standing before me. Gray? I dropped my hand from my knife's handle. He pulled back his hood, and the sight of him rattled me more than colliding headlong into him had. This was not the boy I had known. No, this was not a boy at all. I'd never seen a more stunning man. He had classic Damrian features. Obsidian hair pulled to a small knot at the crown of his head, golden brown skin, and hooded umber eyes. But he was also twice my size, towering over me, the peak of shoulder muscles from his neckline denoting a warrior's physique. He was gorgeous, and yet still wolf-like even in his human form, with glinting canines and a hardened jaw. His angular cheeks dimpled as he smirked down at me. "WH, what are you doing out here?" I asked, scanning the vacant back streets. We're visiting, of course. I mean, what are you doing here, in this alley? I said. His grin widened. I wanted to see the village where you grew up without being noticed. His voice was an octave lower than since last I'd heard it. Maybe a bit too unnoticeable, seeing as you ran straight into me. That voice. Gods, help me. His wolf voice had spoken into my mind during his visits, but we had been 13 then. Hearing it now was distracting. Briar and Velia are waiting at the cabin for you, I whispered. It was all I could think to say as my gaze hooked on his face, dumbstruck. How was it possible this is what Gray looked like? His dark eyes twinkled, making the hairs on my arms stand on end. Walk with me? My lips parted, and I followed him down the alley and onto the wider back road. Cheers and whistles bounced off the stone as we walked across the worn cobbles. My heartbeat thrummed in my ears. He was really here. I cleared my throat. How did you know it was me? Gray's cloak flapped behind him as he peeked at me. Every time those red-brown eyes landed on me, it felt like the ground gave way. Your hair. My hair? I snorted, grabbing a brown ringlet and pulling it straight. I don't have curly hair in my other form. Immediately my eyes darted to the curtained windows and closed doors. No one was around to hear me, but I still said other instead of wolf. San would pay handsomely for the last gold wolf's location, and no matter how pretty the man next to me was, I was always on guard. We had kept our secret these many years through dogged vigilance, not even whispering the word. Chapter 2. Calla and Gray meandered through the ancient forest, the dense canopy casting cool shadows on the forest trail. Overhead, the towering trees whispered secrets as their fingers brushed against the moss hanging from the branches. In the tranquil setting, the two fell into an easy conversation, the rhythmic crunch of leaves beneath their feet echoing their camaraderie. Gray shared news from Damrian, revealing the challenges his family faced due to a summer drought. His father's surly disposition had worsened, but the upcoming royal wedding seemed to lift the spirits in the city. Rumors had spread like wildfire, announcing that the Crimson Princess, Briar, was not only alive but also set to marry the Damrian crown prince. Calla reflected on the long-standing rumors surrounding her lineage. While the world searched for her twin sister, Briar, she remained concealed, a shadow behind the legend of the Crimson Princess. Finally, after 2 decades, the secret would be unveiled. Not one, but 2 Mariel sisters survived that fateful night. Despite the revelation, Calla harbored no illusions about the world's attention. She was content to let Briar navigate the scrutiny of court life while she observed and plotted from the shadows. Gray, interrupting her thoughts, reached for the necklace around her neck, a protection stone he had given her. Their playful banter continued as Gray teased Calla about the lies he could detect, like the scent of perfume in the trees. Memories flooded Calla's mind as they strolled through the summer forest filled with flowers, recalling the days when Briar and she would venture into the woods, hoping to encounter Gray. Gray, lifting a budding white flower from a low branch, asked about the story behind the necklace. Calla recounted the tale of their great-grandmother's dying wish to protect her children, turning the necklace into a family heirloom. The conversation took a somber turn as Gray expressed condolences for the recent passing of Calla's mother, information he had just learned. Their reminiscing led to the topic of Gray's previous visits and the fairy stories he used to share. Calla remembered every detail, from the cleaved peak to the ever-sailing ship and the gold mines of Seville. Gray, in turn, recalled their secret codes and games of chase, the sound of Calla's laughter echoing in his mind. As they continued their stroll, Calla couldn't help but ponder Gray's absence over the last 7 years. His letters, once frequent and filled with tales of magic and monsters, had ceased. The pain of his silence weighed on her, but she concealed her longing beneath a facade of strength. The conversation shifted to the approaching full moon, triggering Calla's awareness of her wolf instincts. The days leading up to the full moon were always tense, and this time, her heightened state added to the complexity. Gray redirected the conversation, asking about Calla's thoughts on the necklace. She explained its significance as a protection stone and affirmed that both she and Briar still wore theirs. Gray's cheek dimpled with a smile, and they continued their journey through the resplendent forest. Upon reaching the cabin, Gray was astonished by its glamour. Calla, familiar with Velia's magic, explained the illusion, and they passed through the concealed entrance. The once empty forest transformed into a sprawling landscape with gardens, stables, and golden carriages awaiting their arrival. Inside, they encountered Briar, elegantly dressed and surrounded by guards. The grandeur of the cabin surprised Gray, who couldn't help but comment on its unexpected opulence. Briar, playing the part of a queen, welcomed Gray with practiced grace, while Calla grappled with conflicting emotions. Velia, the fairy protector, observed the unfolding events with mischief in her eyes. She nudged Calla toward the stairs, insisting on a change of attire for dinner with the Damrian crown prince. Calla resisted, clinging to her role as a shadow in the royal court. Velia's reassurances fell on deaf ears as Calla remained focused on her mission, to avenge her parents and reclaim her homeland. Despite the impending revelation of their true identities, the precarious political situation forced Calla to embrace her role in the shadows, ensuring the success of Briar's marriage and the future of Olmdir. As she ascended the stairs, Calla pondered the challenges ahead, determined to navigate the complexities of court life while staying true to her purpose. The weight of her responsibilities and the clandestine nature of her existence loomed large, creating a tapestry of conflicting emotions in the heart of the Mariel princess who had chosen to remain a shadow.